Okay, folks, let's get started. So it's my pleasure to welcome today's seminar speaker, Dr. Xiaofeng Liu, who's a Schmidt AI and Science Postdoctoral Fellow at Midas. So I'm really happy to have a Midas Fellow speak at a CNRE seminar. So Dr. Liu received her PhD in Water Resources Engineering, along with MS degrees in Water Resources Engineering and Operations Research from Georgia Tech. And her research is pretty interesting. It integrates AI, process-based modeling, and environmental data science in the context of sustainable water quality management to improve freshwater system resilience. And her papers have appeared in several forums, leading journals such as and AI conferences that include Nexus, IC, and So without further ado, Dr. Liu.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mahesh, for the slide. Thanks for the future of the. I'm a shoot, so I should either or I should say it's fine. Okay. Yeah. So I'm a Schmidt AI in Science postdoc fellow. Yes. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about my AI focused research in the past 2 years for the sustainable water quality management. So a little bit of background already of the introduction. So briefly, my research background is in water resources. But also I got my master's degrees in both water resources engineering, also in operations research. So that's also where I got the training for machine learning and environmental data science. So let's start with question. So why the water quality is important and why we study water quality. So we all know that water quality is foundational to the environmental sustainability and also public health. And so the clean water supports the drinking water as a recipient service and also a positive fire balance. But you see, our water resources are increasingly threatened by many pointed and the pointed and also the non-pointed pollution. So as you can see from the left side, so the industry discharge and wastewater treatment plant all can be these polluted with the greenhouse directly, and also the agriculture are runoff carry the fertilizer, pesticides, and also the wildlife waste to contribute the nutrients and also pathogens into the water bodies. And safety system also can link the pollutants in the water bodies and even atmospheric causation. So the atmospheric deposition can also bring the pollutants such as nitrogen in the rainfall and also the air, waters. So all those sources can contribute significant pollution in the water bodies can cause, for example, the algae bloom and also the oxygen depletion, which can cause for example, the fish kills in the waters. So on the right side, I list two major water crises in the US. So the first example is in 1993, Milwaukee, actually Wisconsin suffers significant waterborne damage outbreak due to the parasites contaminating the drinking water resources. So these events caused more than 400,000 people sick. And also in 2 decades later, so 2014, Toledo, Ohio issued a do not drink water advisory, which also impacted more than 500,000 residents. So all of those water pollution issues tell us protecting the water quality is very important for both the system and also the public health. So the freshwater systems itself actually is inherently complex and also interdependent. So the single watershed system has many linkages from, for example, upstream to downstream, and also there's lateral exchange with the floodplains, and particularly we also have the interactions with groundwater. So those complex linkage also contributes the very nonlinear process. For example, a small change in the upstream can also cause the exploitation impact in the downstream. So although all of these natural processes happening in the watershed, but in reality, the natural watershed is not always not aligned with the predictive boundaries, but the administrative boundaries. So those multiple skills whose challenges to water quality measurement, as in the cooperation and management of water quality. So all of those quality skills actually are not only operating themselves. So most of the time, the system is impacted by many external forces. So the major external forces is climate variability. And also there are human activities, also that is change, for example, the urban area expansion, etc. So all those systems are within this broadly social ecological systems, which has involved, for example, policy, also communication, the the policymaker, also researchers and decision maker practitioners. Also, the most important information part in the database. So because of this complexity of system, actually, we have another significant challenge is about the data, because the data is the foundation of the scientific discovery and also the management aspect. So compared with other domains, for example, climate science and air pollution, they usually have the sensors to measure the air pollutants or the weather variables like hourly, weekly, daily. But the water quality monitoring and the sampling are very cost and also very labor expensive. That's why we have very sparse data. So the left panel, you can see globally, the upper panel shows the stream flow stages or monitor stations change within those years. So that is the water quality part. So the bottom panel shows the water quality measures stations. So you can see this water quality variables compared with stream flow water quality variable is very fragmented, very less monitored. So for example, so globally, the total suspended sediment, so which is already one water quality parameter, which is heavily monitored, but it only has 29 data counts per station over the years. And the total duration is about like four years. So another aspect of the data challenge is about the representativeness of the data. So this shows a time series of rainfall that is one variable of the climate, and the total phosphorus TP that is one water quality variable. The time series measurements for one stations in US. So actually, US already has very intensive monitoring network for the water quality due to the the facilities infrastructures. So we can see from here the coverage of the total phosphorus is about 2%. It's pretty low. So if you zoom into 1 year, you can see, so most of the time, so the water quality is measured only by monthly or monthly. So another critical challenge is here. So if you look at when the water quality is measured, you can see because of the monitoring protocols. So most of the time, the water quality is monitored in very fair weather conditions. So that means whenever there's extreme rainfall or large rainfall, there is no water quality measurement. But actually, those times are critical times because that is most conserved time if we have those concentration spikes. So, for example, this kind of data set, incomplete or non-representative data set, if you use this data set to model the water quality, that means you have no representation of these extreme conditions that will bias your results. So the data is not only important for academic research or assessing the current water quality conditions. The data is also very critical for the water quality policy, because since 1960, so the U.S. only invested nearly $2 trillion for the water quality pollution reduction. So you can see the annual spending of this reduction change. It peaks around 1970s, so almost 0.7% of the GDP. So although this significant event, the investment, so we have seen very, very small actually value from this cost. So the reason for that is for the water quality policy evaluation or the cost analysis. So we need the data to reflect what was the condition before and what was the condition after the water quality measurement. But we don't have such complete data, so we have very limited understanding of these true benefits. So for this fact, so build all this background. So water quality is important. There's very limited data for understanding, for the measurement, for the modeling, for the understanding, for the prediction of the water quality. So my research is basically bridging these information gaps using the process-based modeling, which I work mostly during my PhD, and also artificial intelligence, and also statistic modeling or data science to transform this small and big data. So the small data is water quality data, but we also have very big data from other environmental domain. So my research is try to transform this data to actionable insights for sustainable water quality management. At the same time, so based on the current issues of the water quality management, we also drive some problem-driven innovation for the method. So that's all. So for today's agenda, I will focus on the AI-enabled part. So for the AI-enabled sustainable water quality management, I will introduce two works I have done during the last 2 years. So one is about the trustworthiness part of the deep learning. Another one is about the application of the foundation. And then I will complete my talk with the current and next research about scientific foundation. So before we jump into the research part, so I want to give a very brief introduction about AI, those buzzwords of the artificial intelligence. So for example, what is artificial intelligence, AI, what is machine learning, what is deep learning, and what is foundation models. So in very broad level, we have this artificial intelligence, it's called AI. So it represents any technique that allows the computer system to mimic the human intelligence and behavior. So under the umbrella of the artificial intelligence, we have this machine learning or ML. So this subset of AI, it uses the statistical techniques to directly find relationship from the data and learn from the data. So for example, the linear regression or decision trees, all those belong to machine learning. Within the machine learning, we have the deep learning. So the deep learning is special type of machine learning. It uses multi-layer neural networks to learn from more data and learn more complex relationships. So the foundation model I'm going to introduce today actually is one type of deep learning. So that foundation model uses all of the knowledge from deep learning and architecture from deep learning, but the foundation model is pre-trained on more diverse and more data. And then foundation model so this pre-trained model can be adapted to different downstream tasks. So within the foundation model categories, so as we all know, we all heard about GPT. So it's one type of foundation model. It belongs to large language model. So for the vision, for example, the image classification detection, so they have the foundation model called Plate. We also have foundation model for scientific domains. For example, in the medical area, they use the foundation model to discover the neural discover the other genes architecture texture. So today I'm also going to introduce one type of foundation model which I didn't list it here. I will introduce later. And then so we introduced water quality. We also introduced AI. So question is why we want to use AI for water quality. So first of all, as we so know, like water quality monitoring and sampling are costly and labor is intensive, which costs the sparse data set. So for the modeling part of the water quality, we usually have, for example, process-based models. So we can simulate the hydrological process governed by mathematical equations, either ODE or PDE. But for this, but process-based models really require in-depth domain knowledge, and also it requires significant parameterization and also substantial computational resources to calibrate the process-based model. So that means it's very difficult to scale this process-based model. So for one region, you can develop, for a small region, you can develop a hydrologic process-based model to simulate how the water flow and how the water quality transform. But when you want to look at, for example, all of the water bodies, all of the rivers across the United States, it's very hard to build this process-based model. And another modeling technique we all use, for example, is statistical methods. So we all know statistical methods are sometimes too simplified. So it's all oversimplified the inherent linearity and complex interactions somewhat different drivers, the climate, hydrological, and also humans activities. So in that case, we don't have good predictive performance from the statistical models. So this is where the AI comes in. So in recent years, so AI and machine learning has revolutionized this domain significantly. So you can see the continuous increasing of the applications in hydrology and water quality. So the hydrology is focused on water quality, basically because it's easier to measure the stream flow. That's why we have the big data set to develop these AI models for hydrology. But we don't have enough data to work on the AI in water quality. So that's why you see like water quality research in AI is still back. But we also see the benefit, the magic of the AI models can handle the non-linear relationship, have good predictive power, but sometimes the AI can go wrong in many ways. So for example, the AI can use some biased data to train the model and then give you biased results, or the machine learning methods use the non-representative data to give you non-representative results. And second issue with AI, so it's about the modeling. So in terms of the modeling strategy or how we deploy the machine learning model in reality to guide the decisions in water quality management. So when we build the models, we need to consider many different aspects of the we call the trustworthiness. So most of the time, people will focus on the top measure. So that is the performance, try to improve the performance of AI model. But in reality, we already have seen many trustworthy AI research and also practice in other domains. For example, the healthcare, and another example is autonomous vehicle. When the model is not trust enough, it can cause significant consequences. But we have not seen, this kind of trustworthy AI research in water quality domain. So this is where we want to make some contribution, and then this is our first work about evaluating the trustworthiness of the deep learning for water quality prediction. So to do this research, we compiled the water quality data in the continental-scale. So we have about 500 basins. So the data is from 1982 January until 2018, well, less than 40 years data. So we have these water quality environment stations, which give us the data. For each water quality station, it corresponds to one hydrological unit we call the watershed. So in this watershed, you have all of the process happening in the watershed. And so those processes will contribute the water quality and water quality in the outlet of the watershed. So we have those water quality variables at outlet of the watershed. So in this study, we studied very broad range of water quality variables, 20 water quality variables, which are associated with different water quality dynamics, for example, physical, chemical, or the geochemical, weathering variables, and also nutrients related variables. So besides of the water quality variables, which are the variables we want to predict or we want to model, so we have the features as our inputs. The features include, for example, the dynamic features, which means the values are changing with the time. The most important features or drivers or inputs are the climate variables. For example, we have precipitation, air temperature, and also we have the chemicals in the rainfall. And another type of the input features are static features. So we have those features to tell the model what are the properties of this watershed. For example, we have the land use. We have percentage of the forest in this watershed. We also have the soil properties. So for example, the soil has 80% of the soil is sand or the clay. We also have other topography characteristics of the watershed. And another important feature for the water quality prediction is water quality view. That's what we have seen. We have more complete data set for stream flow. So that is one important feature. And for the model part, we basically want to evaluate. So for the initial manuscript, we submitted to Nature Water. So we only evaluated the trustworthiness aspects for one particular model type. So the model I showed left side, because this is what we use mostly in this domain, and what is the state of art model architecture now. And we actually got comment from the reviewer. They said, okay, we want this important question, research question. We want to see more evaluation results from more advanced architecture. So this is how we expect our previous analysis into three representative deep learning architectures. So one is called a recurrent based type. So we use short-term memory. So model. So basically, the model is specifically designed for sequential time series prediction. So at each time step, so you can see the model will take the dynamic and static variables as the input, and then it goes to this called the LSTM cell. So the cell has three parts. For example, the input gate, the forget gate, and also the output gate. So those gates are used to regulate, how much information from your previous step will be retained in your cell and how much information will be forgotten from your previous step and how much of the new information will be entered in this cell. So this sequential handling of the inputs. So we output or we predict 20 model quality variables together and each time steps. So in this LSTM work, the LSTM architecture, the previous or the historical sequential information we consider is yearly based. So we assume the whole year cycle can cover the seasonality and other cycle process in the watersheds. And then we have this operator based architecture.
So that's a question. What is dynamic and static forcing mean?
Oh, so basically for the input features we want to use to predict our traffic variable, we have dynamic and we have statics. So dynamic features means we have the values changing with the time. So the time step we are working on here is daily time steps. So that means, for example, the climate variables, the precipitation.
That's what. So
Yeah.
the things you had in the schematic,
Yes.
those are what you mean by forcings.
Yes. Yeah. Those are the external forces because it's really the precipitation which drives the water flow in the watershed. So those are the dynamic features.
Thank you.
So this is our scan. We also have the operator based models. We call we use the DeepNet, which was developed by and also is one of our authors of this paper. So the operator based model is different from these sequential models. It deals with point-to-point relationships. So point-to-point, I mean, it doesn't use any historical information at the previous time steps. So it always uses the features information at the current step to predict the output or the target variables in the current step. So the DeepNet includes basically two parts. So one is called the branch network and one is called trunk network. So in our work, we use a branch network to take the dynamic and static forcings as external forcings. For the trunk network, we include the spatial coordinates. So the DeepNet is function. So it's trying to learning the relationships between the function and functions, which is different from other neural networks, which is learns the relationships between the data input and the data output. So and then we have the bottom one, so which is more popular architecture now. So nearly almost all of the foundation models, GPT, they are based on the transformer, because transformer actually is attention based. We choose a informer. So in the informer includes encoder and decoder. So the encoder part, similar to the LSTM, it also includes the historical information. So from time step 1 to time step t. So t here we also use 365 to the very LSTM. And then the encoder will get the representation from, and then in the decoder part, we include the output from decoder. We also include the future forcings from t+1. T+1 is the time step we want to make the shift. And then we output 20 water quality variables together. So the difference between three, as you can see, the recurrent means, so the next step prediction always relies on the previous time step. So it will depend on how much information in the past. But the operator-based architecture just learns the functional relationships. It never used the previous information. And attention-based methods, so it relies on only the last time steps of the previous period. It will look at all the time steps in your history and see which part is more relevant to the current prediction. So, and then firstly, we definitely need to look at the model performance from different architectures. So here, we show how the model performance change with across different variables, private variables, also how the model performance from different architectures. The performance matrix we use here is called a KGE. So KGE is a kind of comprehensive performance matrix widely used in our domain. If you look at the definition of the KGE calculation, it basically accounts for example, correlation and also the mean of the prediction versus observation, standard deviation of the prediction versus observation. So the higher KGE, the better performance. So the KGE can range from -infinity to 1. So and if you look at the model's performance, so you can see really LSTM large short-term memory achieved actually performance. And it's a little bit surprised because the transformer-based models already demonstrate state-of-the-art performance in many domains. That's why most of the foundation models are transformer-based. But in our domain, we found LSTM achieve the best, and also we see some other literature also getting the same conclusion. So one possible reason is that since we said at the beginning, the water quality data measurements for this target variable is very sparse. So usually transformer model is more data hungry. That means in order to have better performance for the transformer compared with other time series models, it may require more data, more training data to reach that. For our case, we don't have enough condition to get that benefit. And also, if you compare the performance across the variables, so you can see the variables associated with nutrient cycling are very difficult to predict compared with the variables, for example, that is water temperature, which is the oxygen in the water. So those are the variables which are easily to predict because those variables are highly correlated with the seasonal dynamics. So for example, the winter, the lower temperature, the summer is higher temperature. So that is very easy. But for the nutrient variables, it involves many biogeochemical process. It has those transformation, it has those observation for the state of the models. But actually, the nutrient variables are the most concerned variables actually, because we see in the first slide, the nutrients will contribute the pollution in the waters, cause that algae blooms. You can see cause the fish kills. So these are the baseline performance. So most of the studies currently focus on how to improve that predictive performance. So using whatever we have and different architectures, but it's not enough. So as you can see, more and more AI-enabled systems started to be adopted in the real operational decision-making systems, which means we are not only focusing on the performance of the models, we also need to look at other aspects of the future scenarios. For example, one aspect of these trustworthy principles is robustness. So what does it mean the model is robust? So one aspect is So for example, if we modify our training data, so how does the model will perform compared with your the baseline performance? So what all of the baseline performance you are demonstrating your clean data set. So for example, in the future, we have some other unexpected activities. For example, so some of the AI systems are attacked in the future by some hackers, and some of the noise caused by environmental variability or human errors in the measurements. So what does the model, how does the model perform under that imperfect data set? So we evaluate basically three types of common noise, or perturbation. So one is outliers. That means the extreme high values or extreme lower values. And another is random noise from measurements, from sensors, from other management aspects. And the last one is called adversarial input. That means the model, the system is attacked by other like intentional or unintentional events. So here, the axis is how much of the data set how much of the data, the corrupted data we introduced to the original clean data set. So we have different percentages to see how the model, so the brackets says model performance decline. So how does model performance decline with the increase of this corrupted data set? So different the colors corresponding to different models. So you can see across these different data corruptions. So the random noise overall gives you like very more relatively more robust results. So it has it caused a lower model performance reduction, and outliers and adversarial inputs will significantly damage the model performance. So if you look at the model decline rate, which we quantify as a phase slope here, that is how much of the change of the A per 10% of the increase of the data. So we can see the most robust one, that means the largest here, the smallest absolute values of the slope. So you can see it corresponding to actually deep net. And the least robust architectures corresponding to mostly of the LSTM. So this is a surprise the results compared with the fact that we got actually the best performance from LSTM. So the DeepNet although gets lower performance compared with LSTM, but it demonstrates the highest robustness. So we demonstrated a trade-off between the model performance and the robustness. So this is very important for the real operational kind of measurement. So in the future, you will expect more imperfect data set. So you need to make sure the deployed model is not only best performed, it also will expect the model is more robust to the future corruption of the data.
Can I ask a question? So in the random noise, what is the X and Y represent?
Sorry. Yeah, that's a good question. I forgot to mention. So basically, when we do these synthetic experiments to our data set, so we have the features, we have the target variables. So we can introduce the noise to features only, or the targets only, or both, right? Because eventually in the future, you probably get some noise from your climate inputs, right? From climate models projection, but you can also get measurement errors for your target itself. So we evaluate how the model performance will decline based on where did you put your where did you inject your noise into the sense. So another critical challenge for the trustworthy evaluation is about the interpretability. So we all make prediction based on different models, and we look at the predictions. And the simple question we want to know, how does the model make this prediction, right? So what are the important features the model rely on to make that prediction? So that's part of the model interpretability. Basically, we in our study, we have many input features. So we categorized our features into different feature groups. And then we want to evaluate the feature importance based on these different groups. And we have different attributes methods to evaluate the feature importance. So we call ablation. Ablation means so you have the full set of features, right? If you want to evaluate the importance of the feature A, so you just take out A and to evaluate how does the model performance will decrease or reduce based on this incomplete feature group. And traverse methods means since the features are dependent on each other, so instead of only consider that full set with taking out one set, we want to look at all the combinations of different sets, and we can consider the interactions between different features. And then we have the integrated gradients, which takes the local gradients of how does the model make the prediction from the baseline. So different. So here are some results we got from different models and different attribution methods. So this I show how does the model interpretability change with across different attribution methods. So this is for Austin. So the top arc shows all of the 20 water quality variables, and the bottom arc shows those 5 feature groups. So the ribbon width shows the importance score of each feature group. So you can see for the same model architecture, actually different attribution methods will give you the different important features. So we say we found this inconsistent feature importance across the different attribution methods. So for the same attribution methods, we also see the different feature importance across different applications. So these are the interpretation.
Okay, so it's really nice looking. A lot of information is captured. Can you explain? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar. Can you explain one of those figures? Like what does the art mean? And how are you generating this data?
So basically we have like 21 party variables we need to look at because model will use different features to predict different variables. But all of the water quality variables are dependent on these 5 groups of the features, right? We want to how those feature groups contribute to different variables. So here, for example, this line. So let's say this pink line. So the width of this ribbon quantifies the feature importance of this basin attributes to this total phosphorus.
Let me see. And how do you calculate importance that the
Yeah, so the importance is quantified. For example, if you look at the first attribution methods, we call the ablation study. So ablation study means so initially you have this full set of features, right? You got that performance, and you take out one, and then model is supposed to
got it?
got the worst performance. So that's why we quantify the feature importance. Yeah. And then so we have like 6 dimensions of the trustworthiness evaluation. It's a very long paper. I won't go through all of the details. The final one I show here for the trustworthy part is about this generalization. So usually what we want to achieve eventually is some of the rivers are measured or monitored, and some of the rivers are not, completely not. So you really want to train a model on those rivers which have data, right? And then make prediction on your unmonitored rivers. So that's called generalization. So basically, we found all three models demonstrate very poor generalization scale. If you look at the right panel, so the left panel is the baseline performance we have seen previously. That's based on the temporal training testing split. That means we use all of the basins to train and test. We got this kind of like good performance. But if we split the training and testing based on the stations, we use part of as training, part of as testing, we get very poor performance. So those are all of the trustworthiness challenges we found from these three deep learning architecture, which are the most advanced architecture. So we found we have these data sparsity issues. We have these trustworthy issues. So they are all in the previous deep learning model. So we think the promising pathways to tackle this data sparsity and also this model trustworthiness is through foundation models. So this is we already show what is the foundation models. So I will quickly go through the foundation model application. So we have a language model, language foundation model GPT. We have the vision model. We also have some audio model. But for our water quality research, we are more structured data. So we look for some model which can handle this structured data model. So there's one model called Tabular Fitted Neural Networks, which was published early this year in Nature. So this is a foundation model which is specifically designed for tabular data, and it has a very good skill, especially on the smaller data set. So we want to see if we can use this tabular foundation model to do a better job in the water quality prediction. So I will skip the details of how the model was, how does the model will be was pre-trained and how the model will be adapted to Austin. So I will directly go into our water quality prediction. So the left one shows, so here we have many different, we have 500 rivers. So for each river or each basin, we have this complete data set. We can consider this as a table and frame this as a supervised regression. So we split the data into training data set and testing data set. We also have the features, we have the targets, and this tabular foundation model was not developed for time series prediction. So it doesn't have any temporal information. So in order to tell the model, okay, this is time sequence, it's not just arbitrary data points. We add some calendar-based data features in the feature set. And we have the targets. So how does model predict? So when the model predict, they will use, so in your training set, it will use all of the dates, which, so when the targets are available, for example, if you want to predict 1-1, this can be available. So 1-1 is not better than every day. It only uses the days where there are measurements as your training samples. And when you want to evaluate the model, you have the test rules. And then the model uses transformer architecture, so it has a cache. So in this tabular foundation model, actually it can consider the dependency across the different features and also consider your target dependency on your features, and across the different states is also covering another directional attention. And when you do the prediction based on the training samples, you will consider the dependency from your testing samples to your training set. So we got our so when you want to do the prediction for the second target, because we have 20, right? When you do the second target, you will do the similar process, but this model can only handle this single target variable prediction. That means we need to do 20 times of the prediction for each target. And then we look at how does this tabular foundation model work in our data set. because this model is very general purpose model. It's not designed for water quality. It's trained on synthetic data set. I mean, synthetic means it's generated by either, some statistical model or simulation model. We first look at the base performance, compare with the results we got from previous work, because previous work, the LSTM performs bad. So we compare with the LSTM. So you can see many variables, especially the nutrient variables, actually the tabular foundation model cannot compete with LSTM. So what are the potential strategies or potential ways we can improve this tabular foundation model to outperform the traditional time series model? So we developed this. Sorry, I forgot to list it here. So this is just imagining the spread side. They only can take account for those states with the technical variables. We cannot have the missing information in your technical variables. So if you don't include those states with the missing target, that means you lose a lot of information for those features as well, because you don't consider that. And another one is the current TAP-PFN can only do this single target, but in water quality system, right? So all of the targets are interconnected to each other. That means we didn't sufficiently account for the complex interactions between them. So the model doesn't learn those relationships. So we developed this, we call the 6L. So my AI mentor called this called a self-imputation and cross-variable learning, which is to handle these two limitation of the current TAP-PFN. So I'll quickly go through, for example, here we have this features X, which is more complete. We also have the sparse water quality targets want to predict. So in the first stage, we first split the model to training data set, and then we have this testing data set. Then we have in the training data set, since we have many days, we don't have target variables, and then we feed those training data sets to the TAP-PFN first. We do this self-imputation. So that red color, the numbers, so are the outputs from the first stage self-imputation. So that now we have the complete time series of the target variables. And for the testing data set, we also can do the same prediction. We feed the model, we use the training samples to make the prediction for all of the missing variables in the test set. After we got this, we can do some cross-variable learning. What I call cross-variable learning is, so instead of predicting each target variable independently, we want to let the model learn relationships. So when we predict the target variable 1, 2, we include the 1, 1 as our extra features, because now it's complete. So all of the information can be used for the 1, 2 prediction. For the testing, we also do this augmentation of this actual target feed and actual imputed. And then we have this new feature set, and then we feed the TAP-PFN again. We can do the second stage prediction. So this gives us very good performance compared with the previous direct application of the TAP-PFN. You can see almost all of the variables demonstrate better performance. So this is just like a detailed of the how does the model prediction was compared with the observation. So these things that you can look at this prediction. So all of the red dots are the training samples, and then black dots are our testing samples. So the yellow line is the previous direct application of TAP-PFN, and that the blue line is the prediction from that two-stage strategy. So the most significant improvement here, you can see for those very high spikes or lower values, this new strategy can do a very good job for this. So in this way, we can also expect they will do better jobs for, the extreme case when there are significant rain extreme rain. So we also do some ablation study to evaluate, okay, we have two stages, right? The first stage we do the self-imputation, and the second stage we do the cross-variable learning. So which part, contributes most to the better performance? We do the ablation study. So we found actually the cross-variable learning is the most critical part, which contributes the final results. So that is also means we need to take care of the relationships between different target groups. And then we also look at other aspects. We compare with before. So before we didn't outperform the LSTM, and then we do a rolling window prediction. We can see the TACIF also outperforms the current state of our LSTM. So a little bit of summary about previous work on the trustworthy tabular foundation model. So the water quality data has these properties, right? Fragmented, inconsistent, and non-representative. So the traditional deep learning models, those three models, are like data hungry. So if you train those three models from scratch, use that sparse data set, it's very challenging. And there are many trustworthy challenges associated with those deep learning models. And we highlight eventually, if you want to deploy your deep learning model or AI systems into real operational decision-making systems, you really want to incorporate all of the trustworthiness principles into every stage of your model development. And the success of that tabular foundation model tell us, okay, probably the potential solution for those challenges is, foundation models. So this is the current and the next work. So basically, the previous tabular foundation model is pre-trained on some the synthetic data. So it's not domain-specific data. It's never pre-trained on water quality data. So how about we can combine those synthetic data with our domain data to pre-train the model, so the model can capture more unknown relationships, which was covered before in that tabular model. So we want to eventually currently are developing a domain-specific foundation model, which is to predict the water quality and water quality simultaneously. Because all of the current work, we have one group of, bunch of the experts working on hydrology, which is water quality. We also have some researchers like me working mostly on the water quality. So we predict this separately. For the water quality prediction, we usually use water quality as one of the features, but that is also predicted previously by the same features. So we are thinking whether we can use the same set of features to predict these two target variables set together. That is more efficient, and also you can learn the relationships incorrectly. And so what we are doing now is, so we collaborate with the researchers in USDA. So they have this continental-scale process-based model developed before. So this model can take all of the inputs, the climate, all of the land use as inputs, and then it can make prediction as you guys do the simulation for all of the rivers across the United States. So some of the process-based models in some of the regions, they are calibrated. That means they already compared the ground truth with their simulation, right? But most of the regions are not. But although they are not calibrated, so they still include the hydrological process in the model itself, because the model is governed by those equations, right? So we already got very good results from previous domain agnostic models. So if we can use this imperfect data in that pre-training data set, we expect to get also good results from this model. But the most important thing for this is, since the input data we train this model has this process governed information. So we can make sure the foundation models eventually will make some prediction which is more physically consistent. It's not some like arbitrary values, right? And so after we pre-train the model using this process-based simulation, so we will fine-tune this model with our sparse in situ measurements from the USDA and USGS and on. So this is our current, we have some progress, but I didn't show here. So I'll stop here. I'm sorry for the waste of the time at the beginning for technical issues. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to take it now.
Thank you so much, Sean.
I just to sleep.
Oh, no, that was excellent. That's great.
Yeah.
Questions?
I have a question. So how you compare the AI methodology and the result with the current existing the best statistics and probability approach in terms of especially related to the extreme event you showed in the last slide something. I know there's a specific very good probability that's called extreme value theory, extreme distribution.
Yes.
It can predict or describe this one very well. If you compare these two, that would be more convincing. For example, for extreme value, you would use the black maxima or the peaks over threshold to get this one. That's very useful.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, in the trustworthy paper, when we demonstrate the core generalization scale of the deep learning model, right? So we proposed, so I didn't list another aspect here. We proposed two promising solutions. One is foundation models, right? Because if foundation model is retrained on some extreme events data set, it's supposed to get better performance in the future extreme events. But another promising approach is knowledge guided machine learning. That's also like how we want to incorporate the process-based mechanism into the model. Because to be honest, I work on the process-based model before and work on the AI models now. Since the loss function, optimizing the AI model is more average condition, so the AI model doesn't perform well in those extremes. Actually, the process-based model actually perform better. So since those common equations. So eventually we want to combine these two together to improve that extreme. But there are many other techniques which are used to handle this extreme evaluation. Some of them are loss functions modification or some are architecture modification. Yeah. So I compared before, to be honest, but it's not performing well. Very process.
Thanks. Two more questions. Yes. So I have a question about some use of the we introduced the three deep learning model. I noticed that you changed the structure of the original default lab. Now you add in more blocks and also when you here, so you change the just regular MLP to this structure, and also when you do your input, you only have spatial coordinate, but mentioned for the other two models, you consider the time series, but how you cover the time series data in the default lab?
Yeah, so the most basic architecture of deep learning, it only takes branch and only takes trunk, and then do the inner product of the two of some networks. So we add one more network. Actually, it's the same architecture, but it tries to learn better. So that's the difference between four. But for the inputs, we actually use the same inputs. But compared with this one, we have all of the inputs together as our new information each time step. We separate them here because for the model to be like architecturally valid, you need two information input, right? So we just include all the dynamic and all the static variables, including time features, into the branch. but we only include 2 of the static variables in the trunk. But the total number of the features are the same for all 3 architectures.
So for
Yeah.
the trunk network, the input, you actually don't consider the same.
Yeah, so we are thinking we are splitting the training data and testing data temporally. So we want to really find the relationships among different stations. So that's why we use the latitude, longitude as spatial information as that, but we incorporate the temporary information in the split.
Short question, like what's the general training cost computation wise, and how does it scale with the amount of training data or the architecture complexity used?
Yeah, so I think so Jen is kind of like in your computer science domain, like the scaling law or something.
But I don't know this.
Okay. So basically, so when you have more training data, so at least based on all of the experiments we had before, that's why like took us like many months to run the experiments. So when you have more training data and when you have like more layers, so definitely it will significantly increase your computational cost. So that's also something I didn't mention in the talk. That's why I want to use these foundation models now, because although foundation models take more computational resources, you see like most of the time the tech companies will develop those foundation models, Google, Microsoft, so we for academic research, we don't have enough computation resource. But the good thing for that foundation model is when that foundation model is pre-trained, on massive data set, and then it can be adapted to the downstream task like us, the water quality prediction, in a very efficient way. So those parameters are like not, we don't need to do the training from scratch. That would take a very, very like efficient way. And also I'm thinking for the real world, eventually, if you want to use that system, not in the academic research, but in the real world, like for those managers to manage their system, okay, I want to see the prediction in the future days or something like that. You will never expect those practitioners or managers will train their deep learning model from scratch. So in that way, the best way is, okay, the managers only need to take some checkpoint of that foundation model, just apply to the local data. They also don't need to collect all the data from all the rivers across the United States to make the prediction. So that's why I feel foundation model can be more realistic to apply.
One last question.
So I was just curious if for your input output systems, can this model handle scenarios where, for example, some input variables are not accounted for in the data? For example, while modeling a biological system or an environmental system, you have, let's say, 20 input variables that give two output variables. Maybe in reality, there are 2 or 3 more input variables that are just absent, or we lack the ability to include them currently in our model. And because of that, that can lead to situations like the same 20 input variables, different 20 input variables give you the same output, or similar input variables give you the same, but give you different outputs because you were missing more input variables. So can these models, or like any of the 3 earlier models that you mentioned, account for that in these systems?
So I think for those deep learning models or foundation models here, so basically it's supervised learning. And it requires target, it requires your input features, right? So that means you need to specify what kind of input you have to make the prediction. So definitely you cannot include all of the input variables because some of the variables either they don't have data or you don't know they are existing actually. So that's kind of thing that deep learning model also cannot handle. So you just flag as many as you can. You think like it's important for this prediction, right? But you definitely cannot include all of them. But for that question, my thinking is maybe in the future, the the other architectures, I think maybe they can handle some this kind of non or in explicit like things. But for now, I don't think they can do that. You definitely need to have the input. Yeah.
So even from the data, so even from the limited data that you have, a human can like discern that, okay, I am missing based on this data set that I am definitely missing more input variables. So if
That's why, like, I'm always thinking, especially like see the work I have done is some collaborative work with computer science person. So I feel that domain knowledge is very important, right? So if you give this data set to computer science, they okay, I will just take whatever you have, no judgment. And then for the results, okay, here's the results. I don't know what happens, but that's the best I can get, right? So that's my experience actually. So I feel like the domain knowledge is critical here to decide, first of all, what are the useful information you can use for your model and what is the interpretation of your results. So really the process based on understanding and also the other domain related knowledge is important for this development of the AI systems. So you can never achieve like intelligent like system without this kind of domain knowledge. That's my
Thank you very much. And thank you.
yeah. Thank you so much for bringing it.